As we begin this panel discussion, I want to ask each panelist for a brief reaction to the plans of action described today. What stood out to you about the strategies? Are there any things that you're going to think about as you travel back to your jobs today?
We're at an inflection point on this Drive to 55 journey. There's no doubt about it. I sleep better at night knowing that the non-higher education community is actually going to be leading what is essentially a student-driven enterprise at its core. What's next probably has not nearly as much to do with higher education as it does communities.
I would add that it was great to see the integration of K-12 and higher education and the adult route all being talked about holistically in a community. I know what this is what this work is about, but to hear how connected it was from real people in real communities was extraordinary.
And I would just simply say this to you. In the world of recruiting companies, it has become not quite an arms race, but it is becoming an enormously greater challenge every day for these large projects. The jobs of the future, there are going to be fewer jobs. They are going to require a higher skill set. The good news is they're higher quality jobs. These are family wage jobs, and as a result, I think this will lead to economic prosperity.
What's very encouraging, just as Candace said, is to see each of you in this room working together cooperatively to help us understand exactly what every community needs in each area of the part of the state. I will say that our completion rates have increased by 16%. That's wonderful. We've done a great job moving the needle, but we're not where we need to be. We do want more students to enter the front door, but it's critically important that they exit the door once we get them in.
Commissioner McQueen, you mentioned the importance of a secondary to post-secondary pipeline. Do either of you see any barriers that are out there for forging stronger partnerships for communities that should be tackled in the near future to make sure that we see more of this across the state?
We see that with our K-12 partners that a lot of times the district level central office or the high schools don't have somebody that's just getting up and thinking about, well, how do I create this work-based learning or internships, or how do I break down barriers to make sure all of my kids are getting dual enrollment? And so when you create a person who is thinking about it all the time, we see better results. And so that has been a barrier that we see across the state, and we're trying to figure out how to make sure people have that individual.
The things that we can be doing better is providing some type of standardization across the state. And rather than every community reinventing the wheel every time they want to put a post-secondary options program in place, let's continue to share those. And I think that as we continue to talk, meet with our presidents, meet with the K-12 directors, we're seeing that they're starting to have the light bulb come on and go, well, if they're doing that in West Tennessee, we can do that in East Tennessee, we can do that in Middle Tennessee.
Executive Director Krause, you have led the Higher Education Commission into a much more engaged approach as a coordinating board in terms of supporting community work and collaborating across agencies. How can this work of the College Completion Councils advance the current initiatives being led by THEC?
If you look at the community's initiative and everything we just heard from those counties, it lays almost perfectly over what I think is our centerpiece initiative in the next year, and that's to assist our distressed counties in Tennessee. Anyone that's been to some of those counties, many of whom you just heard from, it's very clear at the county line that there is no economic boom happening there, and that the recession is still very much a visceral part of life in that community. We're not regarding our problems anymore in these distressed counties. We are moving in a kinetic way to instantly try to think through what I think is the most important intersection, and that several of our colleagues up here have alluded to. The importance of CTE being a bridge to higher education. There will be students that no matter what we do, they won't cross the threshold. So we have got to grab them in high school and equip them with a high-quality post-secondary credential.
We cannot do this in a vacuum. Higher ed only knows so much. You heard examples of how the industry stepped up, changed curriculum. We need to hear that. We need to know that every single day. If we are not doing it the way you need us to be doing it, we will change, because we have to.
I think as long as we're not questioning, we're just accepting where we are, and where we are is not where we want to be. And so if we keep doing what we're consistently doing now, we will get to a certain point, but we also need to innovate in places where we know we need more welders or where we need more folks in particular fields across the state.
This is a finite problem. This can be named. So for example, next year in Humphreys County, if 11 more people go to college, your college going rate goes up 5%. Dr. Emily House and our team has done this analysis for every zip code in Tennessee. We can bring that data to you. And Lake County, 2 more people go to college. Your college going rate goes up 5%. And those are the stats that get you in the meeting with Commissioner Rolfe and site selectors.
From an economic development perspective, it's access to good inventory. And the inventory starts, it's a local decision, the local communities and the local leadership. And then from there, once we have the good inventory, then we'll go to step B, and that is bring those companies to those communities. And it's important that when we do have those conversations, that those community leaders do speak up and talk about the asset-rich inventory of having the qualifications in that community, where at the end of the day, when those incentives burn off, that company wants to be in your community.
Again, if you could give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much.